I'm Lori at the Lakeview Cemetery on Lake Okanagan in Penticton, and I chose this place to give you encouragement when you feel guilty for moving on for 3 reasons. Number 1, because I love cemeteries. I find a great deal of encouragement and inspiration when I go to different cemeteries because I see how short life is and how quickly it passes and how important it is to be as joyful and peaceful and choose well while we can, because we're not going to be here for very long. The second reason I chose this particular place was because this headstone is circular, and I don't see very many circular headstones. And that really reminded me of the idea that everything is circular in life. It's cyclical. There's seasons that come and go. Everything comes to pass, but not to stay. That's why this saying, "This too shall pass," is so popular and such a comfort to me, because not everything, in fact, nothing stays forever. Everything comes in and then rolls on out, whether it's good, like a delicious cheesecake or pineapple, or not so good, like a broken shoulder, or even a bout of the flu or chemotherapy. So everything kind of comes in and goes out, and cemeteries always remind me of that. And the third reason that I chose this place and this topic, moving on when you feel guilty, or moving on even though you feel guilty, is because I feel really guilty this weekend. It's the Thanksgiving long weekend. We just got a new camper van, and my husband couldn't come with me as I travel through the Okanagan Valley because he had to work. And I really wanted to go. I really wanted to take this long weekend before the snow flies, and while I still can drive around in my camper van and travel, but I feel really guilty because I left him. And I'm not moving on, and I haven't left him, but I do feel guilty that I am sort of moving on in this new stage of life with our camper van and just pursuing new adventures and making videos in cemeteries, and he's at home doing work and what we always do at home. So I do feel guilty for moving on in that way. So that's why I thought that this would be a good time and a good place to share encouragement, or 3 tips for moving on even though you feel guilty. The first tip the first thing that I'm telling myself is that I can either move on and feel guilty or not move on. And that means if I don't move on, then I'm going to stay stuck at home or stuck doing something that I don't want to do and that I'm unhappy doing. And if you're in a similar situation, you may not be in the same situation as me where you want to do something that your husband doesn't necessarily want to do or that he can't do, but you don't necessarily want to stay where you are because you're not happy there and you know that it's time to move on. So you have a choice. You can either move on and learn how to deal with your feelings of guilt, or you can stay stuck. I'm choosing to move on and learn how to deal with my feelings of guilt. So that's actually my first tip, is decide that, you know what, I'm not going to stay stuck and feeling bad. I'm going to move forward and I'm going to learn how to deal with it. The second tip is to know that whatever you're moving on from, whether it's a person who died and you're moving on with your life, or whether you broke up with someone or divorced someone, or even took a loved one to a nursing home or a long-term care facility because you need to move on with your life and you can't give any more life to that person, know that that person would want you to move on. I know that my husband doesn't want me to sit at home beside him when I'd rather be out doing things that I want to do. And I know he would joke and say, yes, I do want you to be here to cook my meals and sit beside me and watch TV and have fun. But really, he would want me to be happy. And the person, whatever you're moving on from or whatever you're leaving behind, that person would want you to move forward and be happy in your life. Know that. Know that even if that person can't verbally give you his or her blessing, they want you to move forward and be happy. Honor their wishes. Move forward without feeling guilty, because you know that number one, life is cyclical and everything has to pass. And number two, that person wants you to move forward and be happy. The third tip for moving on, even though you feel guilty, is to figure out how you can cope with your own guilt. I can come up with a million different ways of, you cope with guilt by focusing on positive thoughts, or by praying, or reading scripture, or pretending that it never happened, or there's a lot of different tips for dealing with guilt, but I've learned that tips don't necessarily help. We each have to learn our own way to deal with guilt. For me, what really works is just being in this present moment and knowing that right now, what I have, say, touring around in my little camper van, this is the only moment that I have. This is the moment that I've chosen. This is the moment that God has given me. This is where I am. And I can either be here feeling guilty and bad, or I can be here just breathing, knowing that this is where I'm meant to be, and choosing to enjoy every breath, every morsel of food, every sight, every interaction with every person for what it is. I don't know if any of those tips will work for you, but I just encourage you to remember 3 things. That it's all a circle, life is circular, that this too shall pass and you won't always feel this way. So how are you going to move on without feeling guilty? What are you going to do to remind yourself? Maybe like me, you'll do something like go to cemeteries, or do something that reminds you of how short life is. Or maybe you'll make a craft, or make a video, or write a book. Or maybe you'll create a new job, or a whole new path in your life. You'll move to a new city. I don't know. You get to figure it out. Do something creative. I encourage you to think outside of the way you normally do. Don't listen to what I do or what other people do, but make something up that's yours and yours alone. I hope my tips from Lakeview Cemetery have given you something new to think about. And remember to take good care of yourself, because you are worth taking good care of. Mwah.